Welcome everyone, my name is Sam. I'm a psychologist with a deep interest in spirituality and rational ways of understanding yourself. In this video today, I want to talk about a question that might just be the most important question you could ever ask yourself. And interestingly, most people never really seriously look at this question. And this very basic question is, what am I essentially? Now you might ask yourself, why is this question of what I am essentially so important? Well, this is certainly something I want to explore further on this channel in other videos. But for now, let's just say this. Everybody cares about having peace of mind. Every human being, and I might even say every being that exists, wants peace of mind. And the basis for that is understanding what you really are. Likewise, not having peace of mind is very often caused by being confused about what you really are. Now, most people sort of have a naive idea of how to answer this question. They would say something like, well, I'm me of course, this person you see right in front of you. And in some ordinary sense, of course they would be right. I'm not disputing the utility of referring to myself as this body you see in front of you. This is just what we do in day-to-day life. This is how we interact with each other. But at the same time, it should be obvious that this is not all there is to me. Rather, I would propose that ultimately this question of what you are essentially is something that you can only answer by yourself and for yourself. Now, what makes me say that? It is possible that, after all, everything you experience is just a dream, something like an illusion that doesn't really exist, but something cannot be disputed, and that is the fact that you are aware. Now, I'm not saying that everything is just an illusion, but what I am saying is that only you yourself right now know that you are aware. Only you yourself know that you are hearing these words right now. This basic fact of existing and being aware is something that cannot be disputed. After all, are you at all in doubt that you're hearing something right now? So here we arrive at this question of what this aware being actually is. Or to put it in other words, we arrive at the question of what am I essentially? Now you might feel like that I sort of skipped over this first statement of being the body too quickly. So before we actually look at what we are essentially, it will be very useful to see what I am not. Now, I cannot overstate how important this first part actually is. This questioning of what I am not builds the foundation for everything that you could ever know about yourself. I would go even so far as to say that if you fully understand everything that you are not, you have already accomplished everything and you already know everything there is to know about you. Now, for most people, that alone will not be satisfying, but we will get to that later, don't worry. So let's get back to this basic investigation of what I am not. Now let's first look at the most superficial way we could identify ourselves with, and that is with the body. Something that is very simple and very obvious to notice once you really look at it, is that everything that you know of your body is simply a perception. So when I say, I am the body, what do I actually mean with that? What is my actual experience of the body? Well, for one, there's the visual experience. I can see this body. Now, it should be very obvious that just looking at myself or the experience of seeing myself is not what I am essentially. I can simply close my eyes. I don't see my body anymore. Yet there is no doubt that I still exist. Now you might say, well, the visual perception of the body disappears, but nevertheless, I can still feel my body. There are sensations going on. Well, let's take a closer look at that as well. Let's take, for example, the feeling of my feet on the floor right now. I feel sort of a tingling in my feet, the hardness of the floor. I can sort of feel the pressure of my body weight on the floor. I can feel the hardness of the floor. Right, no doubt about that. However, would you seriously consider that any of these feelings are what you essentially are? Just as the visual experience of seeing myself that I mentioned earlier, this feeling of your body is something that just comes and goes all the time. Now, in the next moment, I wasn't even aware of my feet anymore. Most of the time, I'm not aware of most of my body. And I would even go as far as to say that you could take all bodily feeling away, and you still would not feel like you don't exist anymore. You would still feel like you're present. This idea of being the body is something that is often taken for granted. If you look at it closely, you will actually see that there's really not much of a basis for making that claim. Now you might say that what you are, of course, is not just perceptions of your body or feelings in your body, but what you actually are is just the thoughts you have. Going back to the famous statement of, I think, therefore I am. Well, let's take a closer look at that statement. Thoughts just come and go at an incredible frequency. If you just watch your mind for a little bit, you will notice very soon that within a couple of minutes you can have hundreds of thoughts. But with each thought that comes and goes, you will never feel that you disappear. Not at all. You would rather feel like you exist regardless of your thoughts. That even in the gaps within thoughts, before thoughts and after thoughts, you still exist. You still are aware. So having followed this line of reasoning, you might say, alright, well, I'm not the feeling of my body, I'm not the perception of my body, I'm also not the thinking that exists within my mind. Well, I'm of course the I that exists within my head, behind these eyes, that is aware of all these things, of my thoughts, of my feelings, of my perceptions. Now that is a great question, so let's investigate it further. What is your experience of having a head right now? For one, well, you can touch your head and certainly sensations arise. Well, I can look in a mirror and from a 1 meter distance, it certainly looks like there's a head here. So again, what I know of having a head are perceptions and feelings. Now here comes the important question. Within these perceptions, within these feelings, can you find an I that is aware of these feelings and perceptions? Really take some time and consider what I just said. All you know of having a head are perceptions and feelings. And remember that only you yourself can say what you are essentially. Only you can attest to the fact that you are aware right now. And only you can describe what it is that is aware right now. Let's get back to this question I just asked. Within these feelings, within these thoughts, within these perceptions that are happening, is there an I that can be found? And if you're being honest with yourself, there isn't. There is no separate perceiver that can be found with any of these categories. So what does that mean? The statement of I, who is aware, being the body, or existing within the body, is something that simply cannot be confirmed by my actual experience. And shouldn't experience, at the end of the day, be the test of what is true or not about myself? I hope you found this path of inquiry interesting and you took something useful from it. But this is not all there is to understand about yourself. I would very much say that while this understanding of what I am not is absolutely essential, and it sort of is the ground on which our further exploration will be built, for most people this will not be satisfying enough. And I completely get that. The next parts of the series, I want to take a closer look at understanding what I actually am. So moving a step further from understanding what I am not, to actually coming into a direct experience of what I am, and more than that, also understanding of what I am. The qualities, the characteristics, so to say, of what I am essentially. Let me know in your comments what you think about this. Did you find this interesting? Did you find this confusing? I would love to interact with you, and I'll see you next time.